It's no secret that in the NFL, talent is the single most important factor in determining a player's viability in the league. I mean, how else could somebody with as much baggage as Antonio Brown still be getting looks from NFL teams? Anyways, the draft is one of the most important pieces to the roster building process in the NFL, and NFL teams leave no stone unturned in determining what they look for in a prospect. They use all sorts of tactics. Measurables like the prospect's college statistics or their combine numbers. Different coaches and systems value different tests too. Do we need a downfield threat with a blazing 40-yard dash time? Or do we need a shifty underneath receiver that can take a lightning-quick shuttle time to an NFL field? It isn't just quantitative attributes either. Plenty of coaches rely on more subjective means of evaluating talent, like analyzing the prospect's game tape, interviewing the players, or getting a testimonial from one of their former coaches. And of course, plenty of NFL coaches still rely on the good old-fashioned gut method. You know how a general manager really feels about a guy. There is, however, one other huge factor that plays into how high an NFL prospect gets taken, whether NFL execs want to admit it or not, and that is perception. It could be the media hyping someone up or tearing someone down. Either way, it is bound to impact where a prospect is taken in a given draft. Whether that is fair or not, it will always play a factor. In a weird way, sometimes getting too much hype can even do damage to a guy's draft stock. The point is, a lot goes into the drafting process, and countless resources are poured in. So how is it that a physical freak like DK Metcalf, who stands at 6'4" and 230 pounds, all while running an insanely fast 4.33 second 40-yard dash at the combine, went 64th overall in the 2019 NFL Draft? It makes no sense. He was the 9th wide receiver taken, behind guys like J.J. Arcega-Whiteside and Paris Campbell, who have yet to come close to the production that Metcalf has had early in their respective careers. Well, to understand how Metcalf plummeted so far in the draft, we have to go way back, even before DK's time at Ole Miss. Metcalf was born and raised in Oxford, Mississippi, and growing up, like many children, his biggest influence was his father, Terrence. However, Terrence wasn't just your typical father. In fact, Terrence had an NFL career of his own. He played offensive guard for the Chicago Bears for 7 years, from 2002 to 8, before finishing his career on the practice squad circuit for a few other teams. But just because Terrence was obviously a pretty busy guy, you know, with the whole NFL career thing and all, doesn't mean that he and DK weren't close. And every time Terrence was back home in Oxford, the duo had two activities that they leaned on to bond them together: football and lifting weights. And to say that DK started early, well, that would be an understatement. When DK was 5, his father brought home a kid-sized barbell set, one that was loaded with 10, 5, and 2.5 pound plates for DK to get started with. And by the age of 5, the young DK was able to bench press 50 pounds and squat 100 pounds with ease. Yep, at a time in many people's lives when they would struggle to do push-ups with correct form, DK Metcalf was plopped down on the bench press with his father hoisting 50 pounds over his little body like it was nothing. And for DK, that was just the beginning. As he got older, workouts with pops became a regular thing, and he explained to ESPN, "Probably every day when my dad got home from practice," DK said of how often he would hit the weights. "Me just being young and wanting something to do and just happy to see my dad after practice, that was just something that we did together. I believe that's what made me want to do it so much." The only hiatus DK ever took from the iron was during middle school when the Bears strength coach at the time advised Terrence to have his son stick to exercise bands for the time being to avoid stunting his growth. Anyway, despite training like a lunatic, DK didn't actually play any organized football until he was 12 years old, because Terrence, who had endured a couple of less than stellar experiences on the youth football circuit as a kid, didn't want DK to have a coach that would turn him off from the game. This didn't stop him from making varsity during his freshman year of high school, when he finally took to the field though. And once DK got a taste, he knew he wanted to make a career out of it, just like his father had. At that point, the workouts just kept getting more and more intense, and Terrence explained that it wasn't long before DK started to surpass him during them. "As it progressed, he just started outrunning me and outworking me," Terrence said. "As much as I pushed him, it got to the point where he was competing against me to prove that I was never going to be able to be faster than him again, or run longer than him. I just saw that shift and saw how hard he started working. DK just wasn't your typical kid. There was no time for nonsense. He was a 3-sport athlete playing basketball, track, and obviously football, meaning there was no off-season for him to focus on his own training. Instead of using his busy schedule as an excuse, DK was often at the gym before school, usually by 6 a.m., training to make sure that he was where he wanted to be physically to really give himself the best chance of getting a Division I offer. For DK, that meant always looking to push his limits. And once he connected with his high school strength and condition coach, Jason Russell, who was also the school's powerlifting coach, he really started to blossom into the behemoth we know today. Under Russell's tutelage, Metcalf carried out a 4-day week, 2-hour-a-day program with Terrence supervising. During this time, DK went from a long and skinny high school freshman to a kid in a shredded man's body, according to Russell. And by the summer before his senior season, he could squat 500 pounds, bench 275, and deadlift 585 pounds, which are simply preposterous numbers for a high school athlete. Metcalf wasn't just a freak athlete, though. He was putting up numbers for Oxford's football team and parlayed his success into scholarship offers from a number of Division I programs, including Cal, UCLA, Nebraska, and Auburn. But he decided to follow his father's path and attend his hometown school, Ole Miss. Metcalf's time at Ole Miss was filled with ups and downs. When he was actually able to stay on the field, he was productive, averaging more than 18 yards per catch and scoring 14 touchdowns in 21 career games, and really legitimizing himself as a solid NFL prospect by his redshirt sophomore season in 2018. But injuries plagued him in college. He had a broken foot that sidelined him during his freshman campaign, and he suffered a pretty serious neck injury during his final season as a Rebel. Because of his somewhat limited action on the field, some NFL draft pundits questioned Metcalf's decision, thinking that he should have perhaps stayed at Ole Miss for one more season to really show what he could do in a full 12 games. But that was all before the scouts saw him work out in the NFL Combine. You see, as a result of Metcalf's injury, he had an extra month to prepare for the NFL Combine. Once he got cleared, most prospects only end up with 8 weeks to train, but Metcalf spent 12 full weeks at Exos, an elite training facility, and well, the results speak for themselves. He emerged as a sculpted demigod-like figure, and once the internet got a hold of his combine shots, his physique took on a life of its own. The hype around Metcalf grew and truly spiraled into something otherworldly. To be honest, the only instance I can remember that even compares to it was when the memes went around following the shot of former Baylor defensive end Sean Oakman towering over the rest of the players during the coin toss. I'm sure it was a bit of a whirlwind for the then 21-year-old, but still, for the most part, it was all good things. Metcalf was lauded as a surefire first-round pick with the potential to go in the top half of the round or even the top 10, with the hype reaching a fever pitch when he ran a 4.33-second 40-yard dash at the Combine. But then, really through no fault of Metcalf's, the public perception started to turn on the young wide receiver. There was no denying his strength and speed, but the detractors started to pick apart his albeit somewhat raw game, in particular his inability to change directions and run routes.
Mike, a guy that absolutely crushed the Combine, except when it came to change of direction.
Yes, he definitely will be a limited receiver at the next level.
The criticism was only heightened by his meager performance during the 3-cone drill, during which he clocked in at 7.38 seconds, the third worst among wide receivers, and his 20-yard short shuttle of 4.50 seconds was fourth worst. And yes, at this point, everyone has heard that his 3-cone drill was slower than Tom Brady's. We get it. Metcalf brushed off the notion that his performance in these drills were red flags for his future in the NFL, saying, "I didn't really care. I ran the 3-cone and the shuttle because it was the last thing to do. My feet were hurting and I was just trying to get home to my family," Metcalf said. So if anybody has any questions to say about my 3-cone, then go watch my routes and see if I can get in and out of breaks. Or tell them to come guard me and see if I can run routes as well. Yeah, I'll take a pass on trying to guard DK. Anyway, as the draft neared, the criticisms continued to unfairly mount, and more members of the media started to bash Metcalf, questioning his ability to be a polished wide receiver at the NFL level. From there, it spiraled, and every route tree he ever ran and every play he ever made started getting dissected. More and more evaluators began to see Metcalf as a one-trick pony, and when draft day finally rolled around, it showed, as he wasn't even selected in the first round. Metcalf was understandably gutted but maintained a positive attitude, explaining that he believed Seattle was a great place for him to start his career. "It was stressful, but as soon as I got that phone call, everything changed," he said. "I went from thinking about, oh, I slipped down this low. It was just a blessing to be drafted, and at the end of the day, I think I landed the perfect situation." The question remains, why did he fall so dramatically? There was some legitimacy to the NFL exec's concern about his health. He did have good medicals, but anytime a neck injury is in play, it's scary for all involved, especially the people investing millions of dollars in the player. It wasn't just the injuries, though. Teams were genuinely concerned that Metcalf was going to be just a deep threat at the NFL level, and they downplayed how elite he really could be in the role. But truth be told, when it came down to what was a combination of factors, it was the injury concerns and it was the question surrounding his route running ability, but perhaps more than anything, it was an overreaction in two acts. First, his stock shot way up after the pictures of his ridiculous physique hit the internet and his lightning-fast 40 time got out. But when the doubters started to circle, his volatile stock plummeted the very same. Should he have ever been considered a potential top 10 pick? Probably not. But should he have barely been a second-round choice? Definitely not. DK Metcalf's rise and fall in the 2019 NFL Draft was a perfect microcosm of how social media can impact a player's draft stock, and it should serve as a cautionary tale for scouts and general managers that have a hard time blocking out the noise, because they might be missing out on the next DK Metcalf. If you're new here and you haven't subscribed yet, now's a great time to do that by clicking the subscribe button down below. If you like the video, then like the video. We'd really appreciate it. And last but not least, don't forget to tune into TPS every single day for more cool videos. We'll see you next time.